decided to go and mine it, you would not believe the regulations and stuff they would have to go through. If the gravel guys want to do it, they just buy the land and they start digging.
Can work with Lafarge to bring everything into compliance the way you want to see it.
We've been trying to do that.
And I think you'll stand a lot better chance with Lafarge than you ever would with Steel Brothers or you ever would with Twin Bridges. Now, whether you're going to be totally successful is another question. The only thing I can do is ensure that they come into compliance with the Water Act if they're not. Okay, and it's not, and I'll tell you right now, it's not going to happen overnight because we don't have an inspector we can have sitting out there for 3 months straight, watching them night and day. We don't have that type of staff. Where does the infiltration for this take place? Wow. There's some aquifers in Alberta that the rainfall takes place in the foothills, and then it travels here. There's other aquifers, and you have a very small local contribution. There's other aquifers, like in this area, where I presume there's a tremendous amount of surface infiltration down through this area to recharge the aquifer. Under the old Water Resources Act, licenses were issued in perpetuity. As long as the use continued and was in good standing, then it would continue on. And we've got licenses that go back to 1893 in this province that are active today. Now, any new license that has been issued since 1999 is issued for a term. It's usually 10 years or 20 years, depending on what the use is. If it's industrial, it's 10 years. If it's agricultural in the farm sector, it's 20 years.
Would this be
and then they have an automatic right of renewal on that license. And if I want to refuse to issue the license again, I have to have valid cause for not reissuing the license for another 10-year period. One of the things I think you as a group should be doing is going to the county of Lac St. Anne and saying, hey, because you're not the only area in the county down here. There's other areas within the county that have got the same type of problem. You've got north of Onaway there on the other arm. Okay, but let's say this one here. I'm just talking the county of Lac St. Anne. You've now got Sturgeon County that has come up with something that seems like, from I'm interpreting what you're saying, is something you feel comfortable with. I think it'd be well worth your while to approach the county and say, hey, we want to get something like this in place. Approach the sand and gravel industry and the operators in the area. It's to the operators' benefit, believe it or not. They may mumble and grumble about it and say, oh yeah, you're trying to put restrictions on it. But really, when you get right down to it, you're defining what their operation has to be so that they can keep you people relatively happy and they can operate. And then they don't have everybody coming in. Now, for them, if they remove 50% of the people that complain just because they went through this process, that's a major advancement for them. Also, there is benefits to the company in this, and don't let them ever tell you there isn't. There is. And you can get into cumulative effects assessments and all that. Yes, I don't argue that. You can. When you're dealing with sand and gravel, you deal with something called magnitude and scale. If you consider a large open pit for a coal mine, the footprint of that is a lot larger, and the quantity taken out of any one individual pit is a lot more in any given year. You look at a sand and gravel operation, it's small. But under the legislation, we can't deal with a carte blanche area when you go and want an environmental impact. We have to deal with each individual application as it comes in. But when it comes down to sending this thing to the EIA director and asking for a study, it gets in. And don't accuse the companies of being plain stupid in this. They're very smart.
Oh, no kidding.
They bring their applications in just under whatever limit there is established under the Environmental Protection and Enhancement Act for having an EIA called. Every one of their applications will come in 5,000 tons short or 1,000 tons short, so they don't have to go do an EIA. But they submit an application here, and they checkerboard it. And basically what happens is you wind up being two-bitted to death. You wind up, and we wind up. Yeah. But because of our legislation and the constraints within the legislation, we advance it each individual application up to the EIA director, and they say, oh, it doesn't meet the criteria. You don't have to do it. You can handle all the concerns through your licensing process. The first step for anybody to develop a pit like that is they got to go through the county and get the development permit from the county. That's the first step.